This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Christine Stoddard Sánchez.
I think so. I develop headaches if I don't eat proper or a particular quantity, right? I don't. So I agree with you that different people are raised differently, but then there is a natural expectation our bodies have, like we need oxygen, right? We need sleep. We need food. I know models who are underfed because they don't eat, and they have constant headaches, and it does affect their mood. And if they're acting in a project that requires them to be on set for 10 hours, so their attitude or their energy creates a lot of problems in production. And as an effective member of the community, that's your community in that given circumstances. So you got to be efficient. You got to be productive. But your choices of eating less or being a malnutritious, that's you call it?
Yeah, malnourished.
Malnourished. Nutritious is the guy who gives you, or a woman.
Yeah, the food's nutritious. Or nutritionist is the person.
Nutritionist. So if you are, you use a different term, undernutritious? No.
Undernourished, yeah.
If you are undernourished, that means you can't function like a normal human being.
Yeah.
You can have anxiety.
Yeah.
Because you are annoyed and your system tells you I'm not doing well. And that annoyance or that anxiety is then faced by other crew members or your cast or whoever you're working with, which is no fun. Same thing, you might be unhappy client at a store or have some sort of unrest at an event or subway. So the whole fabric of the community gets disturbed or ruined by just few choices. And I think if you're a parent or if you are a spouse, I don't know what your experience was with this gentleman, but people who are in relationship where one person is so particular about food or certain choices and the other is not, it usually ends up becoming a dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah, that's true. That was my experience. It's something I've observed in other relationships too. Food is just such a basic necessity, and I think it's like religion in that it's going to guide so much of your life. So, yeah, I think people who disagree about food or disagree about faith can be together, but you just have to be so careful. There has to be some kind of mediation that happens. You have to complement each other. And I think with food, right now, I'm very happy because my partner and I see eye to eye about food. We have very similar approaches to exercise, and I'm not anxious the way that I used to be. I can see, I've looked at photos of myself recently from a few years ago, and I was marked by how stressed and tired I looked in almost everything. And sure, I'm tired now, but for different reasons. Like, I'm tired now because I woke up early to scrape snow off of the car, and I had a health procedure not that long ago that my body's still adjusting to, but I'm not tired because I'm undernourished. And I love that food is something I can control, but I don't have to obsess about.
No, self-control. See, we talked about religion a lot today.
Yeah.
So the concept of idolatry, especially where we see that in religions such as Christianity, where we don't have idols, But a lot of times we have idols up here. I gotta work out 3 hours a day or 2 hours a day
Yeah.
because I need a particular kind of physique. I gotta control my diet where I look like this. So we develop an image of ourselves that we want to worship. But a lot of us assume that's the way my partner will accept me, my family, friends, or whoever
Yeah.
I'm trying, especially in our field, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
media and all that. You're all worried about the audience or whoever is
Right.
watching me. They will love me more. Even if it's a fake love, even if it's
Yeah.
an idea, like we were talking about a theory versus a practice. In the end of the day, the person who's gonna love you for real will love you for who you are. Whether
Yeah.
you're 40 pounds heavier or lighter, I don't think that would make any difference. Instead, if your choices are not aligned with your set goals, so as I said earlier, what's the end goal?
Yeah.
The end goal is that I have my image in my mind. I'm gonna achieve that, so my cheekbones are like this, right? As an example, or this is really
Yeah.
like the second way, or small t-shirt. And it's my own image. I
Yeah.
have created it. I am worshiping it. I am manifesting it. It has nothing to do with my spouse. It's just an assumption
Yeah.
that maybe he or she will like it or
Mhm.
want it. But did you talk about it or not? Or you should know that you earlier used the term discernment, right?
Mhm.
So when you're in a relationship, okay, we all have phases, we are immature or weak moments. uh, yeah, but in general, we are not that stupid humans. So what do we think of the people we want to be in long-term relationship with? That do I have to keep proving myself, or
Mhm.
why are we in it?
Yeah.
I know in bigger cities like New York, there are couples, a lot of them, who have everything different in their life.
Mhm.
They just come together to spend some time, but they don't share anything. Even their
Yeah.
joys or concerns are more like, oh, did you go to your cardiologist? Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. All right, honey, see you tomorrow. I'm going to go to bed, right?
Yeah.
So that's the lifestyle a lot of people have chosen through whatever the professional choice
Mhm.
or business choice or whatever. But being together, the word empathy you have been using a lot. Being empathetic means, the way I understand it, being in someone's shoes,
Yeah.
feeling their pain, feeling their suffering, right? Embracing them in the time of the need, at practical level, not in the theory.
Right.
You know, like a lot of times, like I was seeing social media, and I don't like it anymore. Somebody will say something, and then there will be tons of comments praying for you, honey, babe, you're in my thoughts and prayers and all. It's all great, but are you showing the world, or you're really reaching out to the person? Are you going to do something for them, or it's just a thing you just say or do,
Yeah.
right?
Performative.
Exactly. Yeah, performance. So then the idea of this couplehood, there's one person who is a fitness freak, and the other person wants to live like a healthy lifestyle, a well balanced lifestyle.
Yeah.
Sleep patterns, noise, uh, schedules. What time are you going to stay in, or are you going to go out?
Yeah.
What is the end goal? I think where there is less vision or no vision at all, relationships fall apart.
Yeah.
What's our end goal, right? If we are just here to make each other happy in the time frame, there are other ways to do that too. Why marriage?
Mhm.
Why commitment? Right?
Yeah. For me, connection comes first, having an emotional connection, and then pragmatically having complementary lifestyles and values.
What's that mean?
So for connection, part of that I think is just the magic of love and
Romeo and Juliet.
but it goes past attraction, and it goes to trying to understand the other person and feeling like you're also understood to some degree, and that you truly care for each other and you're thinking about each other regularly. And not in a performative way, not in an obsessive way, but in a way that just is like a beautiful habit. And with the complementary lifestyle, well, if somebody wants to have children within 3 years and the other person doesn't want to have kids at all, well, that's probably not going to work out for a long-term relationship. If somebody insists on living on the East Coast and the other person says, oh, well, I have to live in the Midwest, well, there has to be compromise or it's just not going to work out. There are just so many things. Yeah, if you have one person who really is a homebody and then somebody else who needs to constantly be stimulated and go to all the parties, again, there has to be some compromise, but it's probably not going to work out if you're that different. So yeah, I mean, on the practical level, I don't think you need to be identical, but you need to both want things that are aligned. And that if something is super important to you and you can't compromise on it, then you should be with someone who respects how important whatever it is, and then can live in a way that honors that. And then for the things you can compromise on, okay, you have to be honest with yourself. Is this a compromise that is pleasant and feels worthwhile, or is this a compromise that is just ruining you and you don't want to make that, and you can't have that be the rest of your life? I think it's really easy to get caught up in courtship and romance and not necessarily think about long-term goals, or to just not be honest with yourself. Or maybe it is, I know that in the case for me, I just got with my ex-husband at such a young age that there were things I hadn't really decided about myself and my life yet. So by the time some of those things played out in life, it was, oh, wait, no, that's not what I want. But definitely if you're getting with someone when you're a little bit more established and you have a better sense of self, then you have to be honest with yourself about what you want and what you don't want. Otherwise, you're just wasting someone's time. And you could have spent that time either in a relationship that made more sense for you, or just single, enjoying your life, focusing on yourself, and then maybe the right person will come along. You don't have to just be in a relationship for the sake of being in a relationship, or married for the sake of being married.
Self-discovery, being aware. We were talking about this at lunch. I think what I heard you saying the same thing, that later on you thought, oh, I don't want this. A lot of us don't know ourselves because we are rushed. We have less time. We are rushed into education and school and job, and after career, we try to invest time learning about how to secure a job, how to write a resume, how to create a website, how to get good grades. And in that whole process, we don't get to learn about ourselves. And we see somebody, we get attracted or infatuated. And a lot of times, a lot of us think that's love. And then we go in, it's a destruction of both the parties, right? We destroy because in the end of the day, when you spend time with somebody, you play with their emotions, they play with your emotions. There's a lot of damage,
Yeah.
and of course there is learning, but the damage is still there. And then you leave them, and then you think, oh, I have some time, without thinking you have this time to self-discover, self-introspection, right? Self-reflection. Why can't we start that early? How can that be started early? So by the time, say, you were 18, you already know where you're heading to. So if you get into someone's life, if somebody gets into your life, instead of the damage, it's a construction work. It's building up. It shouldn't be. I mean, I'm thinking of a classic marriage. This from Christian perspective, I think. Shouldn't the husband be building up the wife, or wife be building up the husband? Right?
Yeah, yeah. I think in the best case scenario, you're supporting each other, right? And you're helping each other become the best version of themselves.
In sickness and
And
health,
in health.
and rich
Yes.
and poverty.
Yes.
So it's not that if your spouse loses job, you leave her and say, "Okay, babe, I can't be with you because I cannot pay your car installments. I have to pay mine."
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, you can say we can share the car. Right?
Mhm.
These are basic things, but I know there's always this ego that why can't you? And I have been a victim of that. Uh, if two people are to go two places, no, I'll drop you off and then I'll take the car. And the other person will say, why can't I keep the car? No, you can't. I mean, this is so it ends up becoming two kids fighting over a candy.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say, in the end of the day, the problem is you don't know each other. Like how flexible you could be. If you had known that early on, then there are people who would say, I can't walk from a parking garage to the store because I just feel cold all the time. Or, I mean, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Whatever the
But
reason.
if you had known that earlier and you use the term courtship, do we use that term anymore?
It is
very-
so old fashioned.
It's
Yeah.
classic, right? It's a nice word.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Because dating is confusing. A lot of
Right.
times you're hooking up, you'll say, I'm dating. We're
Mhm.
casually dating.
Mhm.
You just have a fuck buddy, you'll say we're dating, right? So it's a very I think loose word, dating. So courtship at least has an aim that we are spending time with each other, getting to know, so we could eventually be together.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it works out, we'll be happily married after.
Yeah. Married. Yeah. Married happily ever after.
Happily ever.
Or
Disney type.
or at least in some kind of like a long-term committed
Chin-
partnership.
No, I was trying to use that Disney word.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Prince,
happily
princess
ever
type. Yeah.
after. Yeah. No, I mean, in this society, marriage is definitely still privileged, and that's why same-sex marriage was so important to fight for, because
Wait.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you say privileged, what does that mean?
that there are tax benefits to being married, that if you are legally married, then you can visit your spouse in any hospital or medical facility, no questions asked, right? If my boyfriend is hospitalized, depending on the hospital, I might not be allowed to visit him, or I can only visit him during certain hours. But if I'm the spouse, then I can see him whenever I want. Um, if you're married, it's easier to apply for things together, apply for an apartment together, get a car loan together. You're seen as this unit. Where if you're two unmarried people in a partnership, then you're seen as two separate people. And yeah, you are separate people when you're married, but you're also a unit. And just legally and socially too, there's that idea that you're together and that you both have rights to each other's lives that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were boyfriend, girlfriend.
Okay, tell me something. Why do people say you can be boyfriend, girlfriend for 8 years, but if you get married, you're going to get divorced in a year?
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer. Yeah,
Do you know people who went through that kind of experience?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people who got divorced after a year or two. I was married longer than that, but I also was not married a super long time. I think there's definitely the legal aspect, there's convenience of getting married, there's respect that you'll earn from certain people who care about that kind of thing. I know that in my case, my ex's family didn't want us to live together unless we were married. That was never an issue for me because I wasn't raised to think like that. My mom always raised me to think that marriage and family were important, but not to be so obsessed about every little rule, like you can't live together before you get married. Okay, well, sometimes it just makes more sense to do that. I now, at this point in my life, feel like, yeah, you probably should live together before you get married. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to live together for 7 years and then get married, but there should probably be like a 6 month to a year period where you figure out, can we actually do this? Or are we going to bite each other's heads off every single day? Can we compromise about who's going to use the car and who's going to do this chore and who does that chore and who pays for this or pays for that? Or is one person staying home and doing most of the chores? Like, what is going to happen? It's very, living together is very practical. There are so many things that you have to work out.
I think when a lot of people, when they think of living together, the first thing they think of is sex.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't
Yeah.
think they think about car sharing,
Yeah.
kitchen sharing, or maybe showers. But right away they think, oh, they're going to do that? That's wrong. So what if people say, look, we're going to live together, share this apartment, but we still have boundaries. Depending how, I mean, sometimes I don't use filters, but how you phrase it and is tell people means family or whoever has an objection or concern that, look, these are our boundaries. And we're just trying to understand who wakes up when, who is more messier.
I mean, the reality is, if
Yeah.
you're living together, you're going to be having sex almost without exception.
No,
right?
it's a lot of. So one of the things is I'm trying to find a parallel example, but living together, not in this particular case, but being closer to somebody, it will be more heterosexual situation, the male and female. Is sex always a part of the equation?
No, I mean, definitely.
People could be very close.
Yeah, no, that's true. But if you are a romantic couple, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there are platonic friends who live together. That happens. Or yeah, you could have a gay friend and a straight friend. Yeah, there are different
Right,
situations. But if you're a romantic couple that was sexually active before you moved in together, I'm pretty
So
sure.
I was going to say that. Like, do you have to move in order to be sexually active?
No.
Right? You
of
can
course-
be active anywhere.
Right,
But
so-
sometimes when these phrases, because I also think that phrases sometimes are very powerful tool. It's the same thing I say if you get divorced in very conservative towns,
Yeah.
there's some sort of stigma involved there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But if you go through a breakup, because you were not married, things are a bit different for you.
Yeah, it's not seen as serious. It's not seen as much of a loss. Even if you were living together.
I was going to say,
Right.
even if you were living together and doing everything a married couple would do,
Yeah.
still you are viewed differently because of the terminologies involved,
Yeah.
even if you subtract the legal part of it.
Right.
So sociologically, you will be viewed differently as somebody who went through divorce or someone who just had a breakup.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, going through a breakup might give you more sympathy,
Right.
right? Oh, honey, I'm so sorry you went through that. It's okay, you'll find a better one. But if you say, oh, I divorced him, still people won't trust you and they'll say, maybe something is wrong with you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even like I got divorced while living in Brooklyn. It wasn't while I was in Virginia, and that's, a fairly progressive place. I still had people react negatively, assume that I did something wrong or that something was wrong with me, instead of accepting that maybe two people realized they were not compatible for each other for the rest of their lives, uh, which is exactly what can happen during a breakup, right? Two people decide it's not right. Um, there's just so much judgment and, like you said, stigma that is involved with divorce, even in more progressive circles. And it's really frustrating and it's really not fair.
Right, because see, people still go after the terminologies. Right. And even when I was talking to you, I used the phrase six pack. Now, I don't think mostly people would count there are six or eight or there are four.
Yeah.
It's just the phrase. The phrase, it has power, right? Marriage, it has power. And then, of course, like historically, there is some what's the word? Sanctity to certain words. Sanctity means
Oh, sanctity?
Sanctity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
So certain words carry some sort of sanctity. For example, God, right?
Yeah.
So cool kids, they don't like that term. They would rather use the term the universe, the energy. They talk the higher being. They talk about the same thing. But the moment you use an old-fashioned word, you might lose some friends.
Right.
And these days, people actually, and people who come across very mature, they unfriend you on social media.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I don't hear about God, right? And same word, religion, as I was saying, I used belief system. Concept is the same.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
And what we are talking about, if we subtract the legal side of a marriage, union between two people, their commitment. Now, these days, you can get married by paying somebody $100 and
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't matter who performed that ceremony. In the end of the day, you two are committed. Now, say you were committed in a relationship that had no formal binding, but you were committed and you had to break up. The turmoil or the pain or the damage you're going through, it's the same.
Yeah.
If you had been through the marriage process.
Yeah.
But for the society, these are two different things.
Yeah. I think for some people, a breakup might not feel quite the same as a divorce just because they would only marry someone who they think, oh, well, this relationship is serious enough for me to marry them. And maybe if they didn't marry a person, the relationship didn't necessarily meet that requirement for them. But assuming that this person was the one who was dumped, for instance, then I could see why they would definitely mourn the loss of that relationship. I think even in a case of a divorce where one person initiates, and I was the one who initiated mine. I was the one who made that decision. I still grieved the loss of that relationship, even though I knew it was the right choice, and that ultimately we would not have had a happy, healthy future together. I still cried. I still went through a mourning period. I still, lost people in my life because of it. And not just my ex, right? Like mutual friends who decided that they weren't going to take sides, or they took his side and not mine. I didn't get married in a church, but I know for some people that is huge. Like for my mom, my parents didn't have a Catholic marriage, because a Catholic wedding, because my dad didn't convert, and it can be tricky in the Catholic Church for a Catholic to marry a non-Catholic. She also felt like, well, that's BS. I don't need any bishop to give me permission to marry someone. So they got married in the Episcopal Church, because the Episcopalians don't care about that. And my mom was baptized, so it was like no problem in their eyes. But she said, and she told me this from the time I was a little girl, oh, it was very important for me to get married in a church. And when I came to get married, I didn't care about that. I did want the word God in the ceremony. I did not want the word Jesus in the ceremony. But I didn't think a church was what made the difference or not. I really still feel that it's about the commitment one person has to another.